Hey folks, this is Karen Trepte of Guiding Works Coaching, your productivity coach. Oh boy, guys, I really have a treat in store for you today. I know a lot of you, like me, are intuitive and spiritually minded and really love to give back. So when I met Lynsey Landry, actually I just told her I think she's like a buddy that I've known for so long, but I've listened to a lot of her Facebook Lives, which you're certainly welcome to do after this too. But you're just in for such a treat. She's just such a sweetheart, and she's going to tell you all about herself and her journey. She's definitely an intuitive healer. And Lynsey, hi, thanks for coming on with me.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to just talk with you today.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about your business? Can you tell us, first of all, we'll do it at the beginning, then we'll do it at the end. Tell us tell people where they can find you, and then just sort of a little snapshot about what you're doing now, because I know you've done some different things.
Definitely. So my name is Lynsey Landry. My website is www.lynsey, Lynsey, Landry, LANDRY.com. My Facebook group is Soul Inspired Success. And I am an intuitive and spiritual business mentor, and also a spiritual teacher. So I work with clients one-on-one to help them deepen their intuition and get their business into alignment, ultimately so that they can ditch burnout and deepen their success with ease. And, you'll hear more about that throughout my story as we talk more. And I also teach energy healing. So I have different group programs where I actually teach I teach Reiki, but it's really a lot deeper than Reiki, because we go into foundational tools of really trusting your intuition and building a solid base for your intuitive gifts, and then also using that with others, because one of the things, again, I'll talk about as I'm sharing my own journey is what I notice with a lot of healers is that we can feel confident, like if we're in a closet, but when we have to get out there and share our message or actually put into words what we're doing, it can feel really scary. And so I incorporate all the layers of building deep confidence in your gifts and being able to communicate and to being able to actually show up and serve using your gifts in the world. So that is some of the work that I do with my clients.
Perfect. And I think that you all can feel, the way I feel, just Lynsey's radiant love just comes through the screen. I remember one of the Facebook Lives or videos, it doesn't matter what the format was, that she said, now look, I'm going to, infuse this session with Reiki healing energy. And that was really powerful. I could just feel you coming, or your energy just coming through the screen. So I just want to acknowledge you for that. What a bright shining light on this earth. Okay, so let's talk about, because we have a big variety of an audience here, from really experienced entrepreneurs to people starting out. But I think it's always interesting for me, for sure, and I think it's interesting for a lot of people too, to know, okay, great, so Lynsey's got this really successful business, but how did you start out? Let's go backwards and share a little bit of that, if you would, please.
Definitely. So I grew up Catholic. I'm a small town girl in Louisiana. My grandparents, super religious, super devout Catholic. So I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school my whole entire life. But I can remember, even being about 6 years old, I was fascinated with the angels and, the spiritual realm. So when my grandmother was going to these retreats, I wanted to witness miracles. I wanted to, she traveled a lot to places in the South, Conyers, Georgia, and she went to Medjugorje. And so they would go on these kind of like pilgrimage retreats where people would have apparitions or visions of Mother Mary or different spiritual figures. You know, it was the Catholic way, but, you know, looking at it now, it's all energy, right? So even as a child, like I was just blown away and fascinated by that. Like I was like literally praying to be able to like see these things, you know, just because it was like fun and interesting to me. And so, yeah, like I always had just this burning like interest and curiosity. And I wasn't necessarily one of those children that saw a lot of things. I don't remember seeing angels or hearing guides or anything like that. But there was like this burning deep curiosity about it. And whenever I guess about 12, 13 years old, I always felt different, but at about 12, 13 years old, I started struggling with health problems. And I was a pretty aware kid, like even, again, like 5, 6 years old. Like I remember everybody just telling me like, oh, you're like an old soul, you know, I'm like hanging out with the adults having adult conversations. And instead of like hanging out with the kids. And I was just really attuned to emotions and to whatever, you know, the energy, like I could just kind of shift things. I don't know. It was just always kind of in me. And so as a teenager, I really started to struggle with health issues. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries. My body was a big thing. I started struggling with my weight, lots of yo-yo dieting, a lot of back pain and just different things. And I remember, you know, my mom she would bring me to doctors, and sometimes I think they thought that I was like making stuff up. You know, they're like, oh, take some Advil, or oh, like, you know, it's nothing. And even whenever I started going to the doctors, like it really didn't resonate at all what doctors were telling me. So again, I'm like a 13-year-old and I'm like, you know, no, like what they're saying is not right. There's something else. And so it was really, really frustrating. And that was like the stirring and the start of really this quest to like figure out what is this. And I knew that it was something else, but I didn't know what was it. Like, why was I struggling with these things? So yeah, that was kind of the start.
What did you do? So here you were in these doctor's offices. Well, I guess they didn't give you big time prescriptions to take, and they just gave you Advil. So I guess you could kind of,
well, actually, they wanted to put me on antidepressants. And so I was like a big no to that. I didn't want to do that. They wanted to put me on birth control pills to stabilize my mood and, you know, to help with all that. So we did that a little bit, and it would make me gain a ton of weight, and, you know, moods got worse. I was also like pre-diabetic. So I was on medicine for that. Basically, I felt really sick. Like nauseous, just didn't feel good. When I was in retreat ministry my junior and senior year, and so my faith was like the thing that I would really plug into, that it was like I didn't feel like anyone really got me. So that was kind of the only place that I actually found some stability. And I went to a charismatic retreat, which it was a Christian retreat, Steubenville. I don't know, you know, if any of the watchers have listened or heard of it, but Steubenville South was the retreat that I went to. And so there was a lot of, it was Catholic, but it was more than that. And people were getting the gifts of the Spirit and all these things. And it was my first time that I ever experienced energy in that capacity. And I didn't even know what was happening, but I really, really felt it. And it sort of like sparked this thing again. So like that same curiosity that the angels and whatnot, as my little 5, 6-year-old girl who was so interested, it was like this being in that energy of the praise and worship, but it was more than that. It was whatever was there. it like sparked something in me again. Like I was just really captivated by it and drawn to it. And so I did that, and that gave me some stability. And I started kind of digging into interpersonal, and I knew that that was part of like what I wanted to do. And I ended up, long story short, going to school to become a dietitian. And because I thought, you know, if I get the food and all of that, if I understand my body, then I'll understand what's wrong with me. And, you know, that really didn't work. It wasn't what I thought. I ended up studying holistic health, again, searching for answers. And that kind of helped. Like there was times when I was taking the herbs, the supplements, working out, and I was getting better. And then there was also times when I was doing everything right. And this can also be like parallel to like now in business, right? How a lot of people show up in their business. It feels like we're doing everything right. And then like we're still not getting the results, or something's still obviously not working. Like we're sick, you know, our relationship's not working, something. And that was whenever I started to everything, you know, I think the first time I saw a healer, the thing that she told me is like, you have a way of pulling in everything that you need. And that really is how my journey unfolded. So everything that I needed has always kind of came into my lap, and I just always said yes. You know, like I didn't know what it was, but I knew that I needed it, or I knew that I needed to do it. And the same thing happened. So I'm at this place of just feeling bloated. People are asking me if I'm pregnant because my stomach was so big. And I just knew that, again, there was something else. And there was this one card on the naturopath's desk, and it was for a spiritual director. And I still talk to her today, like, you know, 12, 13 years later. And it just, I felt at home talking to her. Like she saw me, she got me, she understood, and she started teaching me how to connect to myself emotionally and allow more of my soul self, you know, and some of my intuitive gifts to start coming back online. And it was like this part of me started to awaken, you know, to come back online. And then after that was whenever I found energy work. And again, it was just like something in me started waking up. And so each like of these little pebbles that I found, it was like I felt more and more like me, and it just felt like this really big yes in my system.
So you started using the herbs and the nutrition once you were studying to be a registered dietitian?
Yeah, and I actually I did use some in high school too, because one of my grandmothers is really devout Catholic. Well, they're both Catholic, but one is like really devoted to the church. The other one, she actually she was into fitness. So her thing when she was younger was she was a personal trainer. She worked at the gym. She was all about supplements and dieting. And my great grandmother too, like she had a sauna like before saunas were even like cool, you know? And she was always like blending things and making all of these concoctions. So there was like, I guess my family was somewhat open to that. So I did try some supplements and stuff even in high school. And, you know, it was kind of the on and off thing. Like it would work a little bit, and then I would hit these places where I felt like it wasn't working.
So let's get you back to your energy work. I would like to ask you this question. Anyway, I'm just going to ask the question. So what exactly is energy work?
Yeah, so let me see if there's like an easy explanation to this. So
it can be easy. It can be long. I think it's important. I think people have different connotations, and I've had different connotations in my life about it. So I would just like to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. So we have everything is energy, right? So this computer screen is energy. Our body is energy. The light is energy. Sound is energy. Our emotions are energy. So the way that I describe it, like when I'm working with clients, is we have 4 different core layers of energy. So we have the physical body, which is like our physical health, how things, manifest. And then I'm just going to also say this, since we'll probably get into the business part, is like, or if business people are listening. So like if we're talking about our business, we still have a physical, that might be like monetary, or clients that are physically in front of us. That would be the physical energy. Then we have mental. So I'm sure most people have heard of mindset. So we have mental energy. So that's our thoughts, our beliefs, our subconscious. And so, the way that we think and what our subconscious stories or programs are, so it could be conscious thoughts or subconscious, that can manifest into other energy. Because one of the things, like if we go back to just the definition of energy, it can't be created or destroyed, right? Just physical, if you go back to the physics, energy is not created or destroyed. It's usually transformed. So, so thoughts are energy. So if we have these subconscious thoughts, beliefs, stories, that is energy. And then that can affect our physical body. Emotions are also energy, which again, they can't be created or destroyed. And, for me in my journey, I learned to suppress my emotions. Like now I know I'm an emotional healer, but, the young girl who was afraid to like do that and to feel her emotions, I learned how to keep them suppressed and to push them down. And so when we're like compressing that energy, then it can become a block in our body. So for me, it really manifested a lot in my digestive system. And then the last layer is our spiritual connection, or we can think of it as our intuition, our soul, our higher self. So that is the 4th layer of energy. So energy work, they have different types of healers, and different healers are going to work specifically on different things. Like what I notice is some healers are great at channeling the spiritual messages, but maybe they aren't so great at helping people apply them to their life. Or some are great at the emotional piece, but again, like maybe, they aren't, like the spiritual piece might not be their thing. Or we have some mindset coaches that are really good at like reprogramming the mind and getting to the subconscious blocks. So, all of that is energy. So what energy work does is really we are creating space and changing the form of the energy. So, if it's an emotional block that we've like bundled up and tucked away in the corner because we didn't want to feel those emotions, well, we can transmute it into something else and create space so that, the body or our business or whatever it is, however it's manifesting, because when we have these blocks, it's going to manifest in our it might not always manifest in your physical body, but it's going to manifest in your world, so in your relationships, with your money story. Maybe even if you're bringing in money, you might keep attracting the same pattern where you bring in all this money and then like something happens where you have to put out a lot of money. So that might be your story. It's like, I can never get ahead, or I have to work really, really hard for what I have.
So those are the different kinds of energy. That's a great explanation, Lynsey. I really appreciate you doing that. And then when you're describing yourself and the type of
Mhm.
energy work that you do with your clients, how would you describe that?
So I really love doing the deep soul work. So one of my gifts is being able to see somebody's potential and really helping them to bring that forward in the world. And so the way that we do that is we start clearing the blocks. So it's like as we start working towards bringing whatever it is forward, we clear whatever the blocks are that are standing in the way of them being able to own those pieces of themselves. So, like one of the things, actually, one of my Reiki students, we just started my program and it was we just had our first call, and she told me just last night that like there was no area in her life where she feels like she can fully show up as her full self. And that is one thing that I absolutely love helping my clients with, because I truly believe that if we can show up fully in one place and we can really be seen for our fullness in one place, then we can start expanding that energy into other places. So when we see ourselves and when we allow that part of ourselves to come online, even in the closet with, one person witnessing us, then other people will start seeing us. And so, in our business, it's like as we see ourselves for our fullness, for our full capacity, then clients will start seeing us. Other people will start seeing us. And we can stop working so hard. We can let go of whatever those patterns are. Because actually a lot of times I find we can build businesses out of our ego where like we are working so hard for what we're doing. And really when we're connected to our soul and to our essence, and when we're in that place of alignment, we don't have to work that hard. It happens so much easier.
Very cool. That's very cool. So a lot of your clients are actually entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, I would say probably 90%. Some of my students that are in my Reiki classes are not entrepreneurs. So I have moms, but I would say most of them are. So
before we wrap this up, do you have like maybe 2 or 3 tips that you could give entrepreneurs to get more grounded in themselves, get more grounded in their intuition, and take advantage of working on themselves like that?
definitely. So I would say the first step is creating some kind of practice for yourself. And I would say like something that you enjoy, and this might actually be like how you create the practice. So for entrepreneurs, we tend to do this thing where we're like, okay, I'm going to do mindset every day for like, 10 minutes. And we like have so much of a schedule that we're actually taking ourselves out of the flow or out of touch with ourself and what we really desire, because we're on so much of a structure and a routine. So what I would suggest is like making a list first of, you can do as many as you can think, but maybe like 5 to 10 things that either bring you joy or maybe bring you peace or relaxation. So just a few examples, like for me, sitting outside is a huge one, or like even drinking coffee outside. There's just something magical about like being able to go outside in the morning and drink coffee. It's just really calming and relaxing. Another one might be like cooking dinner and having music on, or taking an Epsom salt bath. Maybe it's dancing, if we have some people who like to physically move their body. Dancing might be a thing. But making a list of things that are fun, maybe you don't do them all of the time, you know? And then what I would suggest is, so then putting free time in your schedule, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, or maybe it's one day, depending on how ready you are to like jump into this. And so it could just even be 30 minutes of free time. So instead of calling it like mindset work time or meditation time or anything like that, just have your free time in your schedule and then pick, like, I want you to pick that day. So don't plan it ahead, but like the day of, ask yourself, like, what would feel good today? And then let yourself decide that day. So it's like you are checking in, you're asking yourself, what would feel good? What do I need today? And then you're going to pick something. And it doesn't have to be on the list, but that's just a way to like kind of start.
I absolutely love that because I teach Feng Shui time management. And even though I'm quite organized on one level, I still have a lot of flow and a lot of ease, and I don't like feeling boxed in or, so I love that. And I love tuning in. So I love that you're giving people permission to, like, you know, that day that they're going to do it, just let it be right there and what feels good to you. It's so important, I think, to just take care of ourselves and have that time.
Yeah, and I think the other tip that I would give is really getting curious about your body. Our body holds a ton of wisdom, and usually what I notice is that's the first place, you know, depending on how connected or not connected we are to our intuition, but our body can be one of the first places that our intuition starts kind of trying to grab our attention. So it might be feeling tired. Like if you're feeling tired, really starting to get curious, like, why am I feeling tired? You know, what is this about? Or even if your knee hurts or, you know, you have a physical sensation, really getting curious about it. I love also using the Louise Hay book, You Can Heal Your Life, as a reference tool to like look at some of the body things, but that can be a great first tool to just start making the connections that it's not always just because you ate something. It's not always, you know, just because you had a hard workout, your knee is hurting. A lot of times there is emotional, spiritual connection, even when we do have digestive disorders because of food. Like there's almost always an emotional, spiritual connection to it as well. Like I don't even have food sensitivities anymore. And there was a time when I could barely eat anything because my stomach hurt so much.
Wow. And what do you attribute that to? Why do you think they all went away?
I mean, I've done years of work. So, but really, you know, for me, I would say that really starting to, one of my quotes that I tell my Reiki students is don't do it because you think it's right. Do it because of how it makes you feel. So really that was the turning point for me, is whenever I realized that I wanted to feel good. And so I started to really pay attention to my body and what felt good and what didn't feel good. And then we are taking our power back from food. So if we're looking at food specifically, there's a way that when we get caught up in like food sensitivities, I can't have this, I can't have this, I can't have this, I have to eat this. Like we're giving so much power to food. And we can do the same thing in our business.
Really powerful that you're saying that, Lynsey, because you're a registered dietitian, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hate working with food. I hate working with meal plans because that's not my approach, because I think even I actually told another one of my Reiki students this week, she is wanting to stop smoking. And I was like, what if instead of you having to stop smoking, we just say like, we're going to work on your relationship with smoking? Because if you make it about like, I need to stop smoking, then you're already making yourself wrong. And it starts creating all of this resistance in your energy. Like, you know, and the same thing happens with food. The same thing happens with business, you know, especially for newer entrepreneurs, you know, when they are so afraid to put something out, it's like all of this resistance that we create. So, yeah, when we work with energy, it's like we're actually finding the openings and the flow and what is going to allow things to flow easier versus there like being a tightness and then you're like working uphill. We work with the current.
It's beautiful, Lynsey. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you for sharing you. Can you tell our folks one more time, please, where to find you, and we'll wrap this up.
Definitely. So you can find me at www.lynsey, Lynsey, Landry, Landry.com. And my Facebook group is Soul Inspired Success.
And I will say, in her Facebook group is really tremendous. It's a very loving little community and a very safe place to be able to share your journey and your exploration. So that's it for this time, folks. Sending you tons of healing light and love. This is Karen Trepte, Hygiene Works Coaching, your productivity coach. Talk to you next time.